Becky Lynch has just returned and looks like she'll be helping out a specific area of the women's division. So we'll see what that's about. We'll also see what's new for Alexa Bliss, the Judgment Day, and more. Starting things off with the return of Becky Lynch and a deeper look at what's going on there. After Bayley was taken out of action, Lyra had just 24 hours to find a last-second replacement to help her take on Liv and Raquel for the tag team titles at Wrestlemania. And the second the mystery partner element was introduced, a lot of fans assumed Becky Lynch would be Lyra's new partner, and that turned out to be true. Becky returned at WrestleMania 41 to be Lyra's new partner. It was Becky Lynch's first appearance in pretty much one full year, so it was a big deal to see her return, and no bigger stage than WrestleMania for that return to take place at. Becky and Lyra ended up defeating Liv Morgan and Raquel for the tag team titles at WrestleMania, and it was a moment where you could see the shift, at least amongst the online community. Fans went from being a bit excited about Becky's return to absolutely being very critical of Becky for stepping in and snatching a title away from some of the most hardworking workers over the last calendar year without much logical reason being behind it. So fans are pointing that out right away and coming pretty hard towards that booking decision of Becky Lynch. It's not the first time this sort of thing has happened involving Becky Lynch. Just go back to SummerSlam 2021. Becky made her big return that night by squashing Bianca Belair and taking the women's title from her. Fans are having flashbacks to that moment after Becky did it again here and came right off the couch to take the titles off of Liv and Raquel this time around. So fans were angry and confused. How can they just put the tag team titles on Becky when she just came back? And how could they give Lyra 2 titles when the women's Intercontinental title hasn't even been heavily featured since its introduction? Well, all the fans' questions and concerns were answered on the Raw after WrestleMania, and everything was cleared up there. Becky and Lyra put their newly won titles on the line against Liv and Raquel Rodriguez. Things ended up going wrong, and Liv Morgan pinned Lyra to win back the tag team titles, ending Lyra and Becky's reign at just barely 24 hours long. After Lyra was pinned for the loss, Becky couldn't really deal with it and accept it, so Becky brutally beat down Lyra and blamed Lyra for the loss, marking Becky's official heel-turning moment. It's the first time Becky Lynch is heel basically since SummerSlam 2022. So fans were initially heated after the WrestleMania win by Becky and Lyra, but barely a day later, and we see the full bigger picture of what the story is and what they're cooking up. It was never planned for Becky and Lyra to have an actual tag team title reign together. It was all just a 24-hour ploy to kick off Becky's heel turn and the Becky vs. Lyra program. Considering that Becky has now betrayed Lyra, and Lyra still has that Intercontinental title around her waist, it looks like we'll be seeing Becky Lynch versus Lyra for the Intercontinental Championship. Lyra has been Intercontinental Champion for several months now, and has had a few title defenses every so often, but not once since this entire title reign has Lyra had an actual full-fledged program and rivalry, not even once. So this is a huge deal because Lyra's first real rival to defend her Intercontinental title against is a big name like Becky Lynch. A lot of fans have been critical of the booking of the women's Intercontinental Championships up until this point, but finally it looks like they're turning it around with Becky Lynch entering the mid-card scene to compete for the women's Intercontinental title. The women's Intercontinental titles felt pretty non-existent at times over the last few months, but with Becky Lynch now competing for the title, a star of Becky's level should really bring more eyes to the Intercontinental title, raise its value, and make fans care about the title even more. A lot of fans were talking about wanting to see this sort of direction for Charlotte Flair when she first returned earlier in the year. Fans wanted to see Charlotte go for the Women's United States title to help elevate that title to bigger heights, but that didn't happen in Charlotte's case. But here, we see it happening with Becky Lynch. She didn't return straight into the world title scene. She returned into the mid-card scene for the Women's Intercontinental title. That instantly sets up the first ever blockbuster feud in that entire history of the Women's Intercontinental title. Not only that, but it also presents a great opportunity for Lyra to showcase more of her character. Lyra has been a great champion in the ring, but fans have been saying that we haven't been seeing much of Lyra or seeing anything from her character. Well, this new story with Becky Lynch should surely give Lyra the platform to showcase her character even more in bigger ways. Another big theory that's going around is that Now that Becky and Seth are both official heels with a regular similar mindset, could we see that real-life couple be paired up again on WWE television? Seth and Becky both explained in interviews before that their first pairing on television felt a bit awkward for the both of them because it was a bit forced. There wasn't much story there to explain why their on-screen characters were together. So it was a bit of a weird spot for them where they didn't have much story to roll with. But maybe 2025 would be a whole different story. Maybe their on-screen characters would have a lot in common nowadays. And Seth could even invite his wife Becky to join his faction and have them rule over the company together. And this story would be deeper than their first, but still pretty nice and simple. Just the both of them being the company's most hated top heel couple. Maybe that'll be a more natural and comfortable role for them compared to what they had to work back with in 2019. Another part of Becky's story that could come into play is of course the attack on Bayley. Becky looked like a prime suspect for the attack the second she filled in for Bayley at WrestleMania, and Becky looked like an even bigger suspect for the attack after she did what she did to Lyra. So that's another subplot to be on the lookout for with Becky. So a lot going on in the world of Becky Lynch. You got the attack on Bayley, the Intercontinental title feud, and a potential on-screen reunion with Seth Rollins. Alexa Bliss and the Wyatt Six were not a part of WrestleMania 41, but several things have been coming out that appears to prove that there were several canceled WrestleMania plans for the Wyatts. First canceled thing involved Alexa Bliss. Fightful Selects claims that Chelsea Green almost defended her United States title in a WrestleMania 41 match, and the top names that were reportedly being pitched to the Chelsea's WrestleMania opponent included Nikki Bella and Alexa Bliss. But those plans and pitches eventually fell through, and Chelsea herself ended up missing WrestleMania 41. So once again, pretty devastating to see how close another big return was for Alexa Bliss before it slipped through the cracks. A WrestleMania return really would have been special and nice for Alexa, considering the fact that she hasn't been seen at the event since WrestleMania 37 in 2021. And in terms of the Wyatt Six, well, this piece of information comes from the company themselves. As part of the trailer for the new Unreal special that's coming to Netflix this summer, you can see a whiteboard in the background of the writer's room that featured a very early rough draft version of the plans for WrestleMania 41. And up on the board was Wyatt Six versus the Judgment Day. So it looks like those teasers between Alexa and Liv from earlier in the year were meant to start the foundation for the Wyatts versus the Judgment Day at WrestleMania 41. But for whatever reason, every single part of those plans fell through. So Alexa and the Wyatts almost had big plans at WrestleMania 41, and it's unfortunate that it was all scrapped. But a lot of fans will be hoping to see Alexa and the Wyatts back on Smackdown again real soon now that WrestleMania season is in the books. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.